Friday forecast time. Illinois coming into Lincoln. It's going to be a good one there, Sean. Let's talk about first the week that was. The Huskers seem to have turned a corner in a losing effort, albeit at Ohio State. One of their better performances of the year.
Yeah, no one ever wants to say moral victory, but let's call it what it is. I mean, Ohio State was a moral win for Nebraska in a lot of ways, just to give the program respect for what direction it's going under Scott Frost, because very few people watched Nebraska against Minnesota or the Bethune-Cookman game, and very few people even saw the Northwestern game when Nebraska played pretty well that day. I think Saturday was one of the first times most of the country tuned in and saw Scott Frost and saw Adrian Martinez, and you saw, I think Fox announced it was the highest rated game of the afternoon between the 11s and the 2:30. So a lot of people took notice of Nebraska and maybe the direction this is going in the future.
And the direction they're going on defense, they caused 3 turnovers, back-to-back games with 3 turnovers for the first time in 4 years. And just their way that they were flying to the football, Scott Frost said Monday, was very impressive and a step forward.
Yeah, they were very opportunistic. You saw some guys like JoJo Doman and Luke Gifford step up and make plays, Lamar Jackson with the pick. And I think when you look at this offense, all you need the defense to do is to get a couple more opportunities. And that should be enough for the difference. And you saw just what it did on Saturday, back-to-back forced fumbles in the second quarter, took a game that Ohio State had control. It was 16-7, and all of a sudden it was 21-16 at halftime, and they were a couple of inches away from making it 28-16 if J.D. Spielman catches that football. So the turnovers were a huge part of Nebraska nearly pulling off that upset.
Illinois comes to town. Lovie Smith comes to town. They are 4-5 on the year. Their Big Ten wins so far this year have been against Rutgers and Minnesota, though they blew Minnesota out last week, 55-31. They ran it for 430 yards, and a lot of interesting storylines across the way between these two teams.
Yeah, you think about the Minnesota game for them, though. They fired their defensive coordinator, Hardy Nickerson, or he stepped down, fired whatever he was. Well, they beat Minnesota so bad that P.J. Fleck fired their defensive coordinator after the game last week. So quite a twist of events for Illinois last week. But hey, you mentioned the storylines. Former Husker A.J. Bush, most notably a guy that played here 2+ years. He was here for 3 fall camps, and he left in the 3rd fall camp to go to Iowa Western. So a lot of these players very familiar with AJ. They know him well. They're all happy for him. He's a kid, Andy, that went, when you count Iowa Western, 4 schools in 5 years, Virginia Tech, Nebraska, and then obviously Illinois and Iowa Western. I mean, think about the gear he's accumulated over the years.
No kidding. A lot of practice jerseys there. And Tanner Farmer told us a pretty funny story on Monday, and that he's an Illinois guy, and that was his school of choice up to a point.
Yeah, I almost compare his recruitment a little bit to Nebraska with Harrison Phillips. Nebraska kind of waited to offer Harrison Phillips than everyone else did, and then Nebraska came in after. Same thing happened with Illinois and Tanner Farmer. Illinois didn't offer Tanner Farmer. Then he got MVP at our rivals camp in St. Louis, and all of a sudden everyone offered. Then Illinois came in. He goes, too late. And he made sure to get that out there. I mean, this is a week where he wanted to go up front and share that story. You could tell.
No question about it. Illinois, their running game, obviously A.J. Push is the guy who stirs the drink, but Reggie Corbin, he's a guy who has 952 yards on the year. He's averaging more than 9 yards a carry. He had more than 200 against Minnesota.
Yeah, and they're just an improved team, and I think one thing Lovie Smith has realized, and I think a lot of coaches realize this, that come NFL to college, you kind of need to have that dual threat type quarterback in the college game. And I think Urban Meyer is probably realizing that more after Saturday with his guy, Dwayne Haskins, kind of being different than his past QBs. But you've seen Illinois evolve more into what you would call a college-style offense with Lovie Smith, and he still runs the traditional Tampa 2, as Scott Frost mentioned here today.
Yeah, and you have to believe that points will be aplenty. Illinois dead last in the Big Ten in scoring defense, dead last in rushing defense, or second to last in passing defense. So you got to think that Adrian Martinez and Divine Ozigbo and J.D. Spielman and Stanley Morgan, they're gonna take their shots on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Nebraska having problems scoring. I think you just worry about the mobility and the versatility of A.J. Bush causing some problems, being able to run those 3rd and 6s and getting first downs with his legs, because he's a very athletic guy. I mean, we've seen him a lot here at Nebraska. Inconsistent as a thrower, but makes up for a lot of it with his legs.
Well, we'll see what happens on Saturdays. Alternate uniforms, 11 a.m. for Nebraska. They're going to wear those leather helmets.
7th 11 a.m. game on the schedule.
That's right, the 7th 11 a.m. game on the schedule. It's Saturday, Illinois, right here at Memorial Stadium. It's on the Big Ten Network.